Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the darkest timeline, and it really is the darkest timeline, mostly because, well, I think we all know why. We don't need to say it, do we? Between you and me, we know why. We're going to talk about it, though. We're going to talk about bad days and other people's bad days and how those bad days affect your bad days and what a bad day looks like. We've got movies, games, no TV. I must start watching some TV. If only there's something to watch. What else? Hay fever. That's what else. I knew there was something. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Share the podcast around, folks. It's a simple thing, but it really does mean a lot to us. And we really do appreciate it. Right, let's get this started. So here we go. This is CookieCast, the darkest timeline. Hello. How you doing? You well? I spent the last 10 minutes staring at a web page that won't load. So I decided, I've got a fantastic idea. Let's open another web page. The irony that I find not in the least frustrating is that the web page I was trying to open was a speed test, so I could test the speed of my internet. And I think we know the answer because I couldn't even open the page for the speed test. I am assured by my internet provider that I have adequate internet. I would love to see what below adequate is in their eyes. Because there are times, funnily enough, round about the point in time that I need to do something to do with a podcast, there are times where I don't have internet. There are points in time where I don't have internet. To get the TV in the gym to work, probably over 7 days, it will work 2 of them. On the other 5, I have to do a factory reset because can't connect to the internet. Do a factory reset, tell it to connect to the internet. I am connected. Interesting, because you weren't 5 minutes ago. Anyway, get that little grumble out of the way to start with. How are you doing? Are you well? Honestly, if you're well, you're doing well, because going through one of those points in time at the moment where I just seem to be dodging germs, and what I mean by that is I'm probably going to get something at some point, because my word, there's some corkers going around at the moment. My son sounds like he smokes 60 a day at the moment. I'm like, dude, you need to get that wheezy, raspy, whatever the hell that is, sorted out. You sound awful. So, it's going to be a bit of a weird one. It's one of those that the list is short, which can no doubt mean it's going to be a long podcast. Couple of issues. I'm holding up 2 fingers right now. Couple of issues. One is I've written a film down that I haven't finished watching. Can't talk about it. Still no TV, because the only TV I've watched in the last week is something I've already seen. I'm doing a rewatch. Leon's watching it for the first time, so can't talk about What was the other thing? My memory's terrible at the moment. There was something else I was going to mention. That was it. It's Bank Holiday Monday. So everything's just a little bit off kilter. Feels like a Sunday. It's not. Then on top of that, there's been a load of stuff that's made today feel like a Sunday. It's not. Getting to this evening and going, oh, it's actually Monday. I need to record a podcast. Just everything's just ever so slightly off kilter. So, yeah. Anyway, let's just get stuck in. I had a bad parenting day. The other day, not gonna lie about it. Just gonna. It is what it is. It's one of those. Every parent will tell you that they have a bad day every now and then. I will tell you I have a bad day every now and then. Probably more than that. Gotta get comfy. Gonna have a little drinky drink. Here we go. Alcohol-free Guinness. Yes, please. So. Oh, it's delicious. Last Wednesday. I keep doing these things, which the day before and at the time and all this, it always seems like a good idea. I'll get on the treadmill this evening. That way I'm, ahead for the day. Or I'll get up early. I'll get out and get after it. Or I'll do an hour on the treadmill at midnight and expect to be fresh as a daisy by getting to sleep at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Things like that. They all seem like a great idea at the time because you plan ahead. I need to get on the treadmill for an hour because I can't get up and run in the morning, because I have to replace my run with a dog walk, because everything needs to be done and ready and sorted by 8:45. So it makes sense. Now, if I'm honest, at this point in time, what is nearly a week ago, I can't remember what my genius idea was. I think it was something silly like, I'll just get on the treadmill and do half an hour and then go to bed. Problem with that is, it's not half an hour. Because by the time you've got on, you've got sorted and away you go, it's more like 12:10. You're going to do half an hour, but then you've got to get sorted to go to bed. By the time you're sorted to go to bed, it's 1 o'clock. You get into bed, you've got adrenaline running through your system, and you can't sleep. I think now then, was it that night when I got into bed and I didn't feel very well? Short version is, doesn't actually matter. For some reason, I got out of bed and it was just a bad start to the day. And when I have a bad start to the day is just downhill from there. It's always going to get worse. It's always going to be worse. It's always going to feel worse. Everything about it is going to be worse from the start, and the start was bad. So, there we go, setting the scene. It was a day where I felt like both of my children could sense that I was tired and it wasn't a good day, so they were both independently an absolute nightmare. So there was things like I gave my son one of those like pouch type things There's that part of me that thinks like, oh, you shouldn't be having this sort of stuff. But then you look at it and it's just pureed fruit. That's all it is, sort of thing. So it's like, well, So I didn't give it to him. I put the thing in his mouth, and he sucked the liquid, sort of thing, and then decided to pull his face away. So anything like that, once you apply suction to it, it's go time. So it just sprayed juice all down the front of his top. And I went, well, that's great because we're trying to go out right now. And you've got like pureed fruit all down your front. So that's great. Because that's going to involve a clean up, a change, and we're literally trying to go out the door. So it was a bad day that got worse throughout. There was I'm trying to do a lot better with my anger. I'm trying to do a lot better with my swearing. I'm trying to not demonstrate either of those things in front of the children. But what that results in is me standing in the kitchen, clenching both fists and like really pulling them in tight and doing the clenchy voice thing and going, you flipping mother flipping flippity flip flip flop. It sounds... I'm making a concerted effort to do better with my language. I'm making a concerted effort to do better with my anger. But I sound like an idiot. But that's surely okay. It should be okay because it's for the right reasons. So when you're tired, when you're angry, when you're having a bad day and your children decide to get on the wrong side of you, but you're still trying to, go out and do nice things and do parenting things and, oh, let's go here and do this and let's try and enjoy the day and let's not kill each other and so on and so forth. And there was, there were points that were nice, and I think we've gone to the Air Museum because we've got this ticket which gets us in for a year. So we went to the Air Museum and they wanted to play on the park, but by the time we got to the park, it was basically time to go home, and they were the younger two were both sat in like this tunnel and they were just giggling and laughing and proper laughing and giggling, and I was like, that makes it all okay. But there, for me, there has been a little bit of woe is me recently, and like, why do I have these days? Why do I have so many of these days? Is it just purely that I'm just doing the stupid thing of, I'll get on the treadmill and I'll stay up an hour later than I'm supposed to and try and get some stuff done so that I'm ahead tomorrow. But ultimately, I'm putting myself behind. And I have made a decision more recently. My decision has been to basically say, if it's a choice between getting on the treadmill at midnight and being miserable the next day and not having, a good time with my children, I'm not going to do that anymore. That's my decision. I will have to make it work other ways. And recently, I've found a little sort of pattern where if I can get out and do something in the morning, then that's great. And then when my son has his nap, I can do some treadmill then. And when he has another nap, I'd made a decision that when he was having his other nap, rather than working out, I was going to spend some time with my daughter, my youngest daughter. But I seem to think that she'd done something. She's having these issues with listening recently. So I think there was like a situation. And then you get to the evening, it's like, oh, today was, not the best day. And, you second guess everything. I've said before, and I often say this, I think what makes a good parent is if you second guess absolutely every single thing that you do. Or that goes some way to being a good parent, maybe. So, that was that. That was Wednesday. And you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, but was it really worth it? We had a nice time, but it was the wrong time. And, how could that be improved for next time? And, my youngest daughter's like, oh, I really enjoyed going there today. And, I really hope we can go again. And there is a thing, I think it's lurking in the back of my head and it's sort of creeping in various different ways. But the realisation that there's not going to be many more days like that because of the age she's at and where she's going in September. And I had a conversation with another parent today where I was saying, like, this isn't my first rodeo. I have 4 children. 2 of them have already passed this age, and they've been through, they've been through going to school. So it's not like when my eldest went. But it weirdly it feels different, and it's just like, and maybe there's a part of me that's subconsciously trying to deal with that, and I don't know. Anyway, this was all a ruse of sorts, because I was actually trying to get something else that I was going to talk about. So as I say, that was Wednesday. Okay? So Wednesday, bad day. Thursday comes round. I go into the office. I get set up. The usual. Plug the laptop in, get the coffee cup out. All that sort of stuff. And I'm working, and then a guy who sits next to me on a Thursday, he came into the office and he got sat down, set up, plugged in, all that. And almost immediately, he was like effing and jeffing and, oh, why do we have to do this? And, checking bits of work, and was like, oh, I'll get to that when I'm ready. And being very vocal and very whatever. And everything he seemed to touch was just somebody complaining about something, or somebody wanting something from him, or somebody demanding something from him. And it seemed fairly non-stop. And he was just like, F this, F that, F the other. You can go away. You can sod off. I don't want any of this. I don't want to deal with any of this. I should just go home. I should go back to bed. All of this. We get into the afternoon, and somebody comes over having a conversation, and the guy I was sitting next to was effing and jeffing and all of this. And the other person was like, hey, what's going on with you? What's wrong with you? And I was like, oh, this guy's having a bad day. And he's being very vocal about having a bad day. And that was that. A few minutes later, he turned to me and he was like, oh, was I being really loud about having a bad day? Like, was I being really loud about the way I was going about things? And I was like, if I'm honest, mate, no, you were just, vocalizing what was going on. And then I was like, if I'm honest, this is no help to you the way you are right now. But if I'm honest, it's actually quite comforting to me. that you're clearly having a bad day. I was like, it's not fair on you. It's no use to you. It's no whatever. But, as I was saying, I was like, I have bad days all the time. I have days that are just absolute shit shows. I have days where all I can think is, man, I should have just gone back to bed this morning. There are so many days where just everything goes wrong in spades. And it's just the worst day from the moment you step out of bed to the moment you go back to bed. And it's nice to know it's not just me. And he was a bit like, thanks, that's okay, I guess. And I was like, obviously, you are clearly having a bad day. Obviously, you are clearly struggling with whatever you've got on today. And I do feel for you because I understand what that's like. But I was like, I had a terrible day yesterday, and it's made very difficult with having that addition of, the children aspect. But it's kind of comforting to know it's not just me. So that was kind of like 2 days. And I know for some people will look at that as an opportunity to be like, oh, this guy sitting next to me is having a bad day, but he sounds silly. He sounds ridiculous. And he's effing and jeffing, and I can't imagine it actually really matters. And that's one way to look at it. But I had none of that. I knew that was a possibility. I knew that was an option, but there was nothing there for me. All I took from it was comfort to be able to say, it's nice, it's not just me. And like I say, I know everybody has a bad day, here and there, but it just seems to be so often, so frequent. But now I'm starting to think it's self-inflicted. I think I'm doing it to myself and then moaning about it. Which sounds like something I would do, to be fair. I'm going to tell you the saga of the hay fever spray. The hay fever spray saga. It already sounds riveting. I'm aware of that, but bear with me. Oh, Jesus, honestly. Ugh. Tell you something, that Guinness is good. Right. I'm a hay fever sufferer. What I mean by that is, if I don't take some form of medication for hay fever, it's a different world. It's a different experience. It's different in every way, shape, or form. And I don't mean, I have a little sniffle. Oh, chew. Oh, I need to blow my nose. Oh, no. I mean crippling hay fever. If you know anybody that's got hay fever, if you yourself experience hay fever, imagine all of those symptoms dialed up to about 9,000. Like if I wasn't on medication right now, and by medication I do mean over-the-counter medication, I'm not, I don't get anything prescribed. I wouldn't be able to talk because I'd be sneezing. I wouldn't be able to talk because I'd be rubbing my eyes. I wouldn't be able to talk because I'd have that. Previous podcasts I've done, I've had a bit of a raspy voice. That is from the medication mixing with my asthma inhaler and giving me like a really messed up voice. Without some form of medication, I am just an absolute mess. Non-functioning mess. So, thankfully, medication exists. And over the many years, I think at this point in time, I think that they decided I had hay fever when I was 6-7 years old. 36 years ago. And there have been a variety of different things that I've taken for it. A personal favourite of mine was when I was taking a homeopathic remedy for hay fever, which worked about as well as you'd expect. Basically, they were just sugar pills. At one point in time, I was taking grass pills, which weirdly did work. You got like a massive tub of the things, and you can just take as many as you wanted. Like if you had hay fever symptoms, you just took like 4 grass pills and you were fine. Then basically I switched to 1 a day tablets. Whoever's brand it was, whether it was a well-known high street chemist's brand, whether it was the local supermarket's brand, whoever would give it to me at the cheapest possible price, because, as I found out years in, you need to start taking it in March. There's no grass, there's no tree, there's no flower, none of the pollen is in effect, but you need to build up your it's not tolerance, it's like supply, so that when all the pollen kicks off, you are already protected. So I learnt this, honestly, in the last couple of years. I think I'd seen something or I heard something, or somebody said, like, you do know you're supposed to start taking it before the season. I'm like, what? Anybody that has listened or can remember or wants to go back to round about June, July time last year, feel free to dig into the podcast, because there was a point in time where I wasn't taking the correct dosage of the medication I was using, and I was in an absolute state going, I don't understand, why is the medication not working? And then it was, because you're taking 50% the amount you're supposed to. Anyway, so I used to take the tablets religiously. Then I started having really bad stomach issues. And obviously with like certain tablets you can have issues stomach-wise. There's certain tablets that you're not advised to take longer than X amount of time because you can have stomach problems. This is turning into a full-blown medical history. I suffer from IBS, and I think over time it turned out that having taken hay fever tablets for probably 25 years, I think over the series of back-to-back summers of having horrific IBS issues, I think I ended up landing on it's possibly / probably the hay fever tablet. So I went to said high street chemist and said, right, got a riddle for you, got a conundrum for you. I am horrifically I am a horrific hay fever sufferer. I am also asthmatic. Please, can you give me an alternative to the tablets? And the chemist was like, have you thought of a nasal spray? So this was a few years ago. I started taking a nasal spray. And fine, great, groovy. High street chemist's own brand. It was cheap. They were always on offer. You get as many as you want for as little as you like. Boom, job done. Personal favourite was when somebody was like, "Oh, I can grab you a nasal spray because I'm going into town." I was like, "Cool, cheers." And they came back with so the one I have is a liquid. They came back with a powdered one. And I was like, this isn't the right one. And they were like, I thought it was. I was like, no, it's not the right one. I was like, it all does the same. So I started taking the powdered one. And then after a couple of weeks, wondered why I would basically reached a point where I was coughing up blood. And was like, oh yeah, I'm asthmatic. Spraying powder into my lungs is probably not the best idea. So, got a liquid one. Everything's been fine. So, like I say, there is an issue around the liquid ones affecting my inhaler and giving me a weird voice. But touch wood, things seem okay at the moment. So, one of the big things is, like any sort of medication, whether it's a repeat prescription or anything like that, if you have to take it, you need to make sure you've got a good supply. So there have been points in time, it's like, oh, well, if I buy 4, I can get it cheaper, all of this sort of stuff. Anyway, the last time I ordered 2 from a well-known shopping website, let's say. And it was like, hey, these are £4 a pop. How many do you want? I was like, give me 2. Utah, give me 2. 2. So I ordered 2. They turned up in reasonable time. I used 1. I had 1 in play, 2 new ones. So 1 runs out, you move on to the next one. By the time you get to the last one, that's the point in time you have to think about getting some more. Now, they last, if it's like 2 blasts each nostril in the morning, 2 blasts each nostril in the evening. They're small. They're not going to last forever, but you're going to get X amount of time out of them. So you know when you've probably used half, it's about time to get a new one. So I hit the halfway point. I was like, right. So I went to said online website shopping place. I then went into my previous orders. Quick and easy. Yes, here we go. This is the guy I want. Pressed on it and it said, okay, I've got 2 options for you. Option number 1 is you can order them through us from a supermarket. And you can have them for £4 each. And I said, perfect, there we go, job done. They were like, yep. As long as you order 55 quid's worth of other stuff, you can have it for free delivery. What? I don't want to order £55 worth of other stuff. Okay, this is silly. I've ordered them from you before. I've not had to do it this way before, so why don't you just give me them from you? Yep, absolutely. We can definitely do that. There's no problem whatsoever. You paid £4 last time, so we're going to charge you £6.25. Sorry, what? Because that's double. That's 50% more and then some. So what? Also, if I'm ordering 2, you want over £12. That's insane. All you're doing here is you're trying to force me down a particular route. But I don't want to spend another £55 and I don't want to pay for delivery because never have to before. Oh, well, I'm really sorry. Those are your only options. Can't be the only option. Let me go to a different page for the same product. No, that's the same. No, that's also the same. No, that's the same. Wonderful. So then began the hunt for the hay fever spray. Funnily enough, every single retailer who has previously sold that particular hay fever spray suddenly decided, we're in the middle of the hay fever season, aren't we? Well, yes we are. Time to hike the price on those bad boys. Everywhere. £6.50, £6.20, £6.25, 12 quid. I've never seen price gouging like it. I'm like, what exactly is happening here? So, cunning me, I then said, well, hang on a minute. If I go to the supermarket, the first supermarket's website, how much is it through them? Because you can't tell me that just because I'm ordering through a online shopping website that they're doing some kind of discount. Maybe that supermarket has them for that price. And lo and behold, yes, they did. Well, there we go. I just so happened to be going to that supermarket in the next day or so. Job done. So, didn't manage to get there yesterday. The spray is starting to run out at this point. I'm like, we're in for a bad time. Took myself off to do an activity today, which I realise I'm going to cover in a moment. But anyway, I ended up going to the supermarket. Went into the supermarket. The supermarket was a little less organised than I would have liked. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Finally found the medication. Then once you're in the medication section, it was like some kind of jumble sale. I'm like, just point me to the medication I need. I had my eldest with me. She was like, well, there's a sign there. Go to the sign. So I went to the sign. And I was like, yes, this is clearly the hay fever medication with the protein powders. Managed to narrow down where the hay fever spray should have been. Obviously, no sign of it. I'm like, cool. This is wonderful. At this point in time, I'm like, yeah, that hay fever spray I've got at home is not going to last. It's not going to get me through another day. It is basically empty. I'm just going to have a quick check on said online shopping website. Just a real quick check just to see the deal. And they said, hey, would you like these hay fever sprays that you've been looking for £4 each? I was like, this is ridiculous. Why have you just wasted 4 days of my time to then come full circle? What exactly did we achieve here? So obviously, I placed the order, and they were like, oh, they'll be with you tomorrow. I'm like, but there was such a waste of time. Why? Why does everything have to be so difficult? Here's a fun one. In fact, I might even have to check my notes last week because I'm not sure. Was I talking about how I've probably handed over? Yeah, I did. So last week I was talking about how I suspected I may have been scammed, and it may have in some way, partially, not directly at all, been my own fault. So, at the time of filling in all the details and stuff, I was like, these are the sort of questions they're going to ask if they're going to then sell my data. I was like, fingers crossed, that's not the case. Well, you know what Hope did? I can happily report to you, lovely podcast listeners, that I have absolutely given my data away for free. And the number of illegitimate text messages, illegitimate emails from companies who are like, hey, we'll help you promote your podcast as long as you give me the payment for this service in dollars. So, not from this country. It's coming thick and fast at this point. Do I want some dodgy medical insurance from America? And I'm just like, every time something comes through on my phone, I feel like I should hit myself in the face with the phone for being such a complete and utter muppet. Honestly, the thing that gets me is how brazen it is. How a company can come to you and say, hey, we want to steal your data and sell it to the highest bidder. Are you cool with that? And you say, yeah, sure. My favourite one was when I had a phone call from the doctors about Now, was it? No, it wasn't the doctors. She had a phone call. I was going to say from the doctors about my son, but it wasn't. It was a phone call from the opticians about my youngest daughter. So they phoned, and then they did we're just ringing to make sure you're still coming. Yeah, that's a service you offer. We're just ringing to see if you're still coming. But obviously, while we've got you on the phone, we'll just collect a load of data from you, shall we? And, yep, definitely not going to do anything with that data. I mean, we will sell that data along with a lot of other people's data to, companies who will then later try and defraud you. But apparently that's okay these days. Yeah, cool. I'm an idiot is the shortest version. Clip that out. Play it back to me at some point. You're an idiot. So couple of things. We had the opportunity to go to the maze, which we did. Went to the maze yesterday. It's a very strange situation. Not the maze as such. There's a reason we've never been before, and it's because it is so wildly expensive that we've never been able to justify it. And as the years have gone on, it's been very much one of those things that they just keep adding stuff. And long gone are the years where it was just a big maze made out of maize. It's maze. And like each year you'll see something like, oh, this year we've added this and this year we've added this. And I'm sure it does amazing. See what I did there? You like that one? I'm sure it does amazing business. Which I'm sure also allows for some fantastic opportunities to build more. And that's that. As it is, we had tickets bought for us, so we picked a day when we were all going to be here, and we went to the maze. And we drove for quite some time to park, because, it's busy. We got out, and we headed into the maze. And there was a big play area, and immediately all the children scattered to the play area. And I was like, hang on a minute. This entire place is one giant play area. We don't need to be just going in the park. We can come back to the park. Let's go and have an explore, have a look round. Irony here is we went in the maze, got 10 minutes in and went, yeah, I think we're kind of done with this. So what's the fastest way out of here? I looked up on map and was like, we need to go that way and then basically exit. Let's get out. Which is what we did. That landed us in this area. For how expensive it is to get in, I often think when you then ask people for more money, hey, buy a coffee is one thing, but hey, pay for this attraction is something completely different. And there was a couple of those things which I was like, that's not on. That's not okay. Because it's insanely expensive. I can't stress this enough. So to then be like, oh, now we want more money from you. Because let's face it, we're going to absolutely rake you over the coals for anything you buy while you're here. Coffees are cheap. That was sarcasm, by the way. So we popped out into this area where there was stuff. I was like, hey, let's go and look at this. And then we got close and I was like, oh, they want money from us. The cheek of it. Then there was this thing about this ride. One of those that you go on the back of you get on a trailer that's attached to a tractor and you go around a thing. We couldn't see what it was. So we were a bit like, well, it's a ride. So we'll do that. We had a feeling there might have been a water element involved. We might get wet sort of thing. So we were a bit like, there's a queuing, there's a lot of queuing going on. So I think what we'll do is come back, which that was that. There was a dinosaur. There was a dinosaur maze. There was another maze. Excuse me. I like these smaller mazes. We went to look at the dinosaurs. Everyone had some lunch. There was a mini golf. There was a climbing wall. I'd like to give the mini golf a try, but it was very busy. The children spent quite a bit of time on the climbing wall, which was cool. So they were like, "Oh, we want to go on the ride." I was like, "I know, but there was a queuing situation. I don't know how long the ride is. I don't know how long you're going to have to queue for. When we keep going up, there is a queue. So let's just do some stuff." So there was some big slides. They all went on the big slides. There was a bouncy thing. I don't know what they call it. It's like if you put a bouncy castle under like you buried it. So you partially buried it. So it's just a giant, the pillow. Inflatable pillow. Anyway. There was some stuff that we didn't get to look at and didn't get to go on, which I think would have been kind of cool. This is obviously a time issue. So they went on the bouncy thing. There was something else. They wanted to go on this, it's like a volcano, and you climb up the side of the volcano, and then there's a slide. They wanted to go on that, got on that, but then it got closed because it was raining. There was something else. I can't think. Anyway, so at this point, I'm a little bit in the camp of, I'm not sure this is worth the money. There's a lot of stuff, and I mean a lot. There is a lot of stuff. But although there's a lot of stuff, no individual piece feels worth it, if that makes any kind of sense. It feels like, hey, we've got these big slides. It's like, okay, you've got some big slides. That's cool. That's great. Does it justify the fee? No. Hey, we've got this bouncy thing. Okay, cool. Well, we went to a farm at one point and they had one of those. The farm was cheaper to get into and in some ways more enjoyable. Is it worth the fee? No. Oh, we've got this volcano climbing slide thing. Okay, but anytime it rains, you close it. They didn't even get that far into the process of climbing up it before you closed it because of the rain. Was that worth the fee? Individually, on its own, no. If you put those few things together, was it worth the fee? No. You go around, you're going on the climbing wall. They went on the climbing wall a lot, but something I'll come to in a minute, so they had loads of stuff. But if you looked at each of the things individually, are they worth the fee? No. And obviously you can't take them individually. But let me put it like this. If you've ever been to a theme park and you've got on a roller coaster and you rode that roller coaster and it had the ups and the downs and the twists and the turns and you laughed and you cried and you screamed and you did all of that. And then somebody said to you, that's the only thing you can go on today. The whole time here is the only thing you can go on. Then they ask you if it's worth it. There's a chance you'd be like, yeah, I really enjoyed it. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Individually, nothing was worth it. And when you put all of the things together, was it then worth it? So, out of the blue, my eldest says, we want to go on the ride. And I was like, oh, yes, right, we do. I was like, look, solid, let's go. We'll go down there, we'll queue, we'll do it. Also, might be worth noting that this was the point, the second or third time of the day that it decided to rain. Luckily, we had our raincoats with us that were in the car. I didn't mention that at all day. No, that's right. I mentioned it about 50 times. So, now then, I've got to own up here. I didn't realise the situation. The situation is that there is a queue, and there is a queuing system, and you go through and you go in, and you queue here and you queue there, and but it's constant. There must be 2 tractors running. So, basically, as one's pulling out, 2 minutes later, the next one's pulling in. I was like, damn it, if I'd have known that, I'd have just said for us to queue earlier. And that's on me. I thought you were queuing for like 20 minutes because they kept banging on about it being a 20-minute ride. Turned out, because Leanne and my son didn't go on it, turned out it was more like an hour. But anyway. So eventually we queue, and they put us into the rows to get on the trailer, and then one tractor goes, and then the next one comes, and we got on the trailer. And I'm like, man, we should have done this sooner. So we're on and we're off. And it's nothing but bad jokes. And I'm like, this is going to be painful. It's going to be a chore. So off we go. And then there's all these things like these crows pop up, and they've got water guns and they spray you. And then there's points where there's fire, and then there's points where you pull up and a guy comes out and he does a bit of a thing. But they were telling all these bad jokes. And for some reason, and I don't know if it's the dad in me, but for some reason I started really enjoying the bad jokes. I'm like, what is happening here? And I started laughing, and I started smiling, and I started enjoying it more. And then we went round the corner, and the guy who'd been doing the thing on one side was then the same guy on the other side, and he made a joke about that, which I found very funny. And I'm like, why am I finding this so funny? And some of the special effects were bad but good. Like, bad but they were low budget, so they were quite good at the same time. And I'm like, why am I enjoying this so much? And then we went off, and towards the end there was like a bit of a show, and the guy that was doing the show was very good, and he was doing all the stuff, and even more bad joke. It was just joke after joke after joke, and I was just, by this point, I was just beaming with a smile. And then we came around and we got off, and I was like, I'll tell you guys something, I really enjoyed that. And I'm like, ultimately, was it all worth the fee? You're looking for that one thing, and unfortunately for me, that one thing, that ride, was worth it. I was like, that was the highlight of my day. I really enjoyed it. I was spoken to a couple of people, and those people have basically gone the other way. They were like, it is so insanely expensive, and it is not worth it. And I'm like, I didn't pay for it. So it was probably worth it to me that bit more because I didn't pay for it. If I had have, I'd have been saying it very differently. I'd have been like, it absolutely wasn't worth it. Now then, did all the children enjoy it? Did all the children have a good time? Did the children mind getting wet, even on the ride or in the rain or whatever? I think the answer is no. They didn't mind getting wet because I think they genuinely enjoyed it. I think they had a genuinely good time. And ultimately, that's all that really counts. They got to go in the park for 5 minutes at the end. Even that will have been worth it for them. So a good day was had by all. Final thing for the week is from today. And from today, there's been an explosion in our house. And that explosion is the explosion of climbing. Other than my son, who's just too small for it, everybody's into climbing at the moment. And I mean everybody. My eldest, it's very much started with her. I mentioned in passing to Leanne, I was like, when are you going to get climbing? thinking she'd be like, oh, it's not for me. And she was like, oh, something I've been wondering about myself. And I think I might give it a go. And she's gone and she's really enjoyed it, really got something out of it. It seems to have lit a spark for her. And then next thing, I've started going a little bit more. And then my middle daughter, who had a bad experience with climbing and never wanted to go again, when we were at the maze yesterday, she jumped on the climbing wall and shot across it like some kind of mountain goat. Did that 3 times. Next thing I'm like, hey, do you want to go climbing tomorrow? Because we're all going to go climbing. She's like, absolutely. My youngest daughter's been chomping at the bit to go climbing because everyone else is doing it and she wants to do it. So she's like, I'm going climbing as well. So that brought us to today. It's Bank Holiday Monday. What can you do on a Bank Holiday Monday? Get yourself down climbing. So I sent Leanne and my eldest off to go climbing, 9 o'clock this morning. I was like, we'll hang here. My son can have a sleep and then we'll come and join you. Today's climbing, I described very much like how it was when I used to play golf. You go out and you play golf and you have the best round of golf you've ever had in your entire life. And you're like, I am on top of the world. I am the greatest. And then a couple of days later, you're like, hey, I'm off for a round of golf. Because I had an amazing round of golf the other day. And I'm definitely going to have an amazing round of golf today. And out you go and you get out on the course. And you have nothing short of the worst round of golf anybody's ever played in the history of golf. And you literally want to end not only your own existence, but everyone else's. I'm never playing this game again. Everyone and everything can drop off the earth. And that's that. A couple of days later, someone's like, hey, do you want a round of golf? And you're like, sure, why not? And you go out and you have a great round of golf and you really learn something from it. And you're like, man, I completely underestimated this whole thing. It's a learning curve and I've got to learn. Each time I get out there, I've got to learn. And I learned something today and there's definitely room for improvement. And I'm just going to keep trying. And then you go out the next time and it's the worst round of golf. You get the picture. Every time you go, it's either the best round you've ever played or the worst round you've ever played. I'm finding climbing is exactly like that. Literally, every other time I go, it's the best or worst time I've ever been. Today was on the downswing. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get anything working. I couldn't get anything going. I fell off a wall, had to catch myself, slipped off a foot thing and proper like hanging off the wall going, I'm going to die. And I was like, I'm 4 foot off the floor. I'll probably be fine, but I don't want to have to fall that far. So I had to adjust and sort that out. There's these 2 particular climbing routes that I've been battling with that I just can't do, is the simple answer. There were like these areas that I wanted to try because they're new, but they're new, so they're super busy. It wasn't busy when we got there, but it just got busier and busier and busier and busier as the day went on. And I don't, when Ed's like, come down at 6:30 in the morning, and I'm like, absolutely, because I know there's going to be about 3 people there, and I don't have to deal with it. Hey, come down on a Saturday or a bank holiday Monday, there's a lot of people there, and I'm like, I feel exposed, feel on display. Absolute worst climbing experience I've had. And I'm due to go again on Wednesday. So we'll see what that situation looks like. But I will say this. I think the new motto in our house is, a family that climbs together stays together. Do you like that? I came up with that the other day. So, I've got a little bit of a problem here because, like I say, I wanted to talk about a film, but I haven't finished it. I've watched 2/3 of it. Thought I might get the other third watched this evening. Didn't. So there we go. other film in question is a film very dear to my heart. Is this film? So I've been watching the Transformers movies. They put all the Transformer movies onto Prime to generate people wanting to watch the latest one. For me, I was like, hey, I've got 5 films I can stick on while I'm on the treadmill. It's going to last me a month. Which weirdly was the case. It did seem like it took me forever to get through them. I even watched all the way up to Bumblebee. Some of them a lot better than I remembered. Some of them a lot worse than I remembered. In the process of getting Bumblebee finished up, I'd seen a trilogy go on to Prime, and I was like, oh man. So the Hangover trilogy had been put on Prime. The Hangover, the first one, is a film that's very, very dear to my heart. 2 and 3, not so much, but we'll get to that. So, there's a point in The Hangover where it shows the date and it's 2009. And I'm like, I have to presume that this film came out 2009, 2010 sort of area. Now, I know this for a fact, but I'm going to tell you, using my terrible internet. Oh, my terrible internet that's decided to actually work. Oh, he spoke too soon. Silly man. Right, here we go. What am I doing? The Hangover. 2009. We can watch the trailer if you like. Obviously we won't. 2009 makes a lot of sense. Now, 2009, Hangover. Saw a trailer. I wanted to see it. It looked great. I watched it. It was great. At that point in my life, something I really, really wanted to do was to go to Las Vegas. The Hangover is set in Las Vegas. I watched the film and I was like, oh my God, I need to go to Las Vegas. I've wanted to do it for years. I need to do it now. Come 2010, so the film's been out a while, I've seen it a few times. Come 2010, I'm like, it's my 30th birthday. Didn't really put the two together. I think we did an outdoor cinema, and one of the films we put on was The Hangover and all this. Didn't really put too much into it because ultimately it's not like I'm pulling Las Vegas kind of money out of my ass. Right up until my mother was like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to go to Vegas, but I can't because I can't afford it. She was like, sure about that? I'm like, yeah, pretty sure. Why? It's like, well, you're thinking it's going to cost this much money, but you can probably find a cheap way of doing it if you look at this hotel and look at that. So even at that point in time, I started looking it up and it was like, oh wow, it's a lot cheaper than I thought it would be. And then it kind of brought it into a kind of manageable kind of way. There was a lot of, people going, hey, it's your 30th, here's a big chunk of money to go to Las Vegas. There was a lot of that involved. So I'm not, and it wasn't just like one or two. It was like a good few people going, hey, here's some money to help you go to Las Vegas. And it went from being a complete, like, there was absolutely no chance of me ever going to almost being in a position to do it, and then looking at things and it being cheaper, and then next thing it's like, well, I'm off to Vegas. In part due to The Hangover. The Hangover was the thing that tipped me over the edge, the thing that made me say, the thing that made me go from I'd really like to go to Las Vegas to I need to go to Las Vegas. So that film is very dear to me. It was my favourite film at the time. I was like, I watched it a lot. I went to Las Vegas. I came back from Las Vegas. I saw The Hangover again. I saw the second one when it came out. I saw it a couple of times. I saw the third one when the third one came out. I think I've seen that film once. And that was that. And basically, from watching the third one once, so let's find out when that was really quickly. Is there a way to just get into... No, of course. Oh, no. Yeah, there we go. More like this. 2013. So they did three films in 4 years. That's pretty good going. I mean, they were huge. They were juggernauts. So in the space of 4 years, I went from this film being my favourite film, and I watched it all the time, to never seeing it again. That is now 10 years ago. So I was like, hey, I haven't seen The Hangover in what it turns out is 10 years. Now is absolutely the time to watch it. So I finished watching the Transformers movies and I put The Hangover in. I'm not going to go through too much other than this really long-winded story about me watching The Hangover. What I will say is this. 10 years down the line, laugh out loud. Funny. I'm on the treadmill, I'm running, and I am laughing out loud at certain points, which is partial nostalgia and partial because it is just funny. It's just a good film. There's a few bits where you're like, yeah, I'm not sure if that still tracks now. It's a bit of a stretch of the imagination. In the second one, because I've started watching the second one, there's points in it where it's like, that is purely there to push the story on. There's a giant crowbar hanging off the end of that bit. However, the first one is just, obviously one of my other favourite films is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and there is so much, it reeks of Fear and Loathing. It's almost like a spiritual successor to Fear and Loathing. The point where they wake up in the hotel room is just pure Fear and Loathing. It was a very nostalgic ride, a very enjoyable time. I've just realised that there was something that wasn't in it, which I'm not sure is a deleted scene that I may have seen far too many times to then presume it's actually in the film, or whether it was a slightly different version. That's interesting. So yes, big nostalgic love for The Hangover. I haven't finished the second one. Can't really talk about it. Computer games wise, I have been well and truly stuck in the world of Skyrim. Something happened recently, which I feel a bit about. Inadvertently started playing the DLC. So when I bought the digital version of Skyrim, I think I went through the problems I had with it because I own it on the Xbox and I couldn't get it to install. So it was like £12 on the PlayStation Store in the sale, so I just bought it on the PlayStation Store and got it that way. But the version I bought came with the DLCs. Inadvertently started playing one of the DLCs, which I didn't know. I knew there was some element of, I don't remember playing this originally. However, it wasn't until I Googled a choice that it revealed that the missions I was doing was the DLC. Seamless, yes, but I don't know if anyone else feels like this. I want to play the main game first and then the DLCs, which I felt this kind of didn't give me the option to do that. However, like with any mission in the game, you can just walk away from the missions you're doing, which inadvertently is what I've ended up doing, because one of the missions was like, hey, collect all of these things. And I went, 2 of those items I can get easily. The other 6 items, I've absolutely no idea where to start. So I'm just hoping that I'll pick them up as I go along. That was a couple of days ago. And weirdly, I have right up to when I turned it off and went to bed last night, I have picked up all of those items just by playing the game. So I was like, cool. It's so good. I'm still enjoying it. There's been the odd dungeon that I've got into, and after a while I'm like, man, this is long, and it's grating on me. It's not flowing quite the way I want it to, and it's just a chore. Which, when you're playing what is no doubt going to be well over 100-hour game, you don't want to be feeling like it's a chore at 38 hours in. So what I will say to that is we'll just have to see how it goes going forward. That, ladies and gents, is the podcast for this week. Sorry if it's a bit rambly. Sorry if it's been a bit all over the shop. Like I say, things felt a little bit off kilter with the bank holiday. But hopefully it was enjoyable. And join me for the next one. So there we go. What do you think to that? Bit long-winded, maybe? Was it? I don't know. Started out weird. I felt it started to flow more towards the back end. Am I wrong? I've no idea. Clearly, I've no idea. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you very much for listening, watching, being here, being a part of it. If I could ask you to do a couple of things before you go, click the like button, click the share button, share it around, let people know. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave us a review. Check out the website. There's always one I forget. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There, you can get in touch with us through either social media or the email button. Click the email button, it opens an email. Job's done. Think that's it. And that's it for this podcast. So, until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Cookie Cast.